I'm Emily Dawson, and 3 weeks ago, I was fired after building the brain of a system my entire company relied on, then daring to tell my new boss he wasn't qualified to manage it. Not officially fired, of course. No public goodbye. Just a quick meeting with HR, a thin envelope, and a forced smile from a man who once told me I was too detail-oriented to lead. I didn't cry, I nodded, picked up my chipped coffee mug, and walked out of the building I once thought was my future. What they should have checked on my way out wasn't in my backpack. It lived inside a private Git repo, encrypted so deep even I had to pause to remember the access path. A behavioral prediction engine, lean, fast, surgical. It tracked user habits in real time, optimized sales funnels before the user even knew what they wanted. It wasn't just smart, it adapted, it learned. I built it alone, in my old apartment, before Apex Logic ever offered me a contract. Before they caught wind of the idea and turned it into a bloated Frankenstein of a product, with Jared Monroe's name stamped across it in bold. He never understood it. Not once. But he rose through the ranks with buzzwords and charm. I was the one keeping the lights on. When I pointed out that his deployment was crashing the recommendation engine during peak hours, I was told I was being too emotional. Emotional. I wrote the algorithm that made the millions every quarter. I wasn't emotional. I was accurate. But accuracy has no seat at the table where men wear Patagonia vests and speak in LinkedIn slogans during every team sync. That night, I powered up my old personal laptop. The glow of the screen lit up my quiet apartment. I typed the first command like I was resurrecting something they tried to bury. Not for revenge. Not at first, but to remember who I was. To rebuild what they tried to erase. You want to hear the wildest part? I rebuilt it, I improved it, and I handed it directly to their biggest competitor. 3 weeks later, I sat in a new office, across the city, coffee still warm, and my monitor glowing with metrics. 28% increase in conversions, retention rate up, system load steady and flawless. My name was on every commit, and across town they were panicking. They didn't know what hit them. But they were about to. Not to the beginning, but to the moment they lit the match. It was 2 months ago. The air in the office was fake calm. The kind that lingers just before a storm. The kind where smiles tighten and eye contact avoids you like you're already a ghost. They'd just announced it in an all hands. Jared Monroe was being promoted to VP of Engineering. Visionary, they said. Fresh ideas, fast thinking. The usual fluff. Meanwhile, I was being asked, no. Expected to train him, on a system I designed, on the engine that powered 62% of Apex Logic's conversions, the engine he had no idea how to operate. Emily, said Mark, the CTO, fake grinning like he'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror. We need your help bringing Jared up to speed. He's got leadership instincts, but your expertise will help smooth the handover. Smooth the handover. I stared at the man who'd once told me I was too valuable to lose. Now I was the ladder they were climbing. Again. So I did what women like me always do in rooms like that. I nodded, I smiled, and I went home and backed up every damn thing I'd ever written. Logs, code diffs, Slack threads, version histories, all of it. Then I unplugged my company laptop and powered up something older, something real. My personal project, the original engine. No team, no managers, no approvals. Just me and a dusty keyboard, and the version I built before they ever paid me to replicate it under their bloated name. I rewrote every line, refactored every module, stripped out the fat, made it lean, lethal. And while Jared was giving interviews on how he planned to revolutionize Apex Logic's data architecture, I was quietly building a version that made theirs look like it was ducked, taped together by interns. Because it was. I didn't have to sabotage anything. I just had to compete. And this time, I was playing for me, not for a company, not for praise, just for truth. That's when I reached out to someone I met 2 years ago. Lucas Tran, now CTO at Stratus Analytics. He had once tried to poach me over drinks at a conference. I turned him down back then. Loyalty, you know. But loyalty doesn't pay rent when they're kicking you out the door. My message to him was short, Still building. Got something real. You still hiring? He replied in 10 minutes. Always. Show me. I did, and everything changed. We jumped on a call that night. Lucas didn't waste time. He leaned into the camera, eyes scanning the live demo I was running on my screen. Is this what I think it is? He asked. No, I said deadpan. It's better. The engine hummed beneath my fingertips, data flowing in real time through simulations we threw at it. Predictive segmentation, adaptive conversion hooks. Memory usage sliced in half, no bloat, no bullshit. Just clean, elegant logic. Lucas sat back, silent for a beat. Then, I wanted all of it. Consulting CTO. Full deployment rights. Name your equity. I didn't even smile. I just said, send the contract. The next 48 hours were a blur. Stratus Analytics engineering team plugged my engine, newly renamed NovaCore, into their sandbox environment. It sang. Every test case passed in milliseconds. Every user flow snapped together like clockwork. Meanwhile, back at Apex Logic, things were starting to crack. A routine marketing deployment failed to push. Their API test platform glitched out mid-campaign. Users started dropping off during checkout. The conversion engine, the bloated, overpatched, corporate, hacked version of my code, was crumbling under its own weight, and I wasn't even touching it. I was already somewhere else, building the next thing. My thing. Watching dashboards light up with performance metrics Apex hadn't seen in years. Stratus retention rates spiked. Clients noticed. One of them, an enterprise partner Apex had fought hard to woo, sent a quiet message to Lucas. Who built this? We want in. My name wasn't public yet, but the code was speaking for me. Meanwhile, Apex was scrambling. Jared was in over his head. His first production deployment took down the live recommendation service for 3 hours. He blamed third-party latency. In a Slack thread so messy, one of the junior devs screenshot it and sent it to me. They had no idea I still had friends inside. One message ready. Did we just hand the steering wheel to someone who can't drive? Another. This engine is stitched together with prayer and coffee grounds. By the end of that week, Stratus launched NovaCore Live across 3 major platforms. Their lead data engineer whispered holy shit under his breath when he saw the uplift. 28% lift in conversions, 41% faster user flow, server load, cut in half. And just like that, the quiet woman they kicked out was now the reason their biggest competitor was eating their lunch. I didn't send any press releases. I didn't tweet. I didn't need to. Because at Apex Logic, the panic had already begun. And I hadn't even made a sound yet. By Monday morning, the cracks at Apex weren't just internal. They were hemorrhaging. Their largest client, an enterprise media group with a multi-million-dollar annual contract, flagged performance issues. Recommendations weren't loading. Response times spiked to over 300 milliseconds. Checkout flows were stalling. A disaster hidden behind smiling dashboards and Jared's buzzword, heavy status updates. Behind the scenes, the engineering channel was on fire. Anyone know why the rec engine is throwing null returns? Client just escalated again. Anyone? Silence. Then, looping in Jared. But Jared wasn't answering. Because Jared didn't know what he was looking at. They had built a palace on top of my code, patched it, painted it, layered it with quick fixes and shortcuts, but they never understood the foundation. And now it was cracking under the weight of their ignorance. Meanwhile, over at Stratus, we were moving fast. I wasn't just helping, I was leading. Lucas and I worked side by side as we expanded NovaCore into new verticals. E-commerce, subscription services, real-time targeting. Each one plugged into the engine with ease, and each one performed better than anything they'd seen before. We weren't just outpacing Apex. We were outrunning the whole damn market. And then it happened, the press caught wind. TechBeat ran a feature. Stratus Analytics quietly launches NovaCore. Performance numbers turn heads. It was subtle. No name drop, no controversy. But industry folks read between the lines. They started whispering. A few even remembered the woman who had vanished from Apex right before things started falling apart. The next day, A Slack screenshot landed in my inbox from one of my former teammates at Apex. A message from Dale, the same VP who once told me I was too much of a perfectionist to scale. We're investigating whether Emily's legacy architecture may be contributing to current performance issues. Legacy. I stared at the word for a long time. I hadn't touched their systems in months. I didn't have access. Hell, I was escorted out of the building like I'd tried to steal the damn fire extinguisher. But here they were, trying to blame the ghost of my code for the mess Jared had made. I forwarded the screenshot to Lucas. His reply, deploy faster. We did. The next rollout of NovaCore hit that weekend. By Sunday night, we were serving live traffic from 5 new clients. Conversion rates were breaking records. One customer retention manager said, "It's like the system knows what our users want before they do." Back at Apex, they were bleeding clients, and I hadn't written a single line for them since the day they walked me out. All I did was build. Build better. Build smarter. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone take my name off the code. By the end of the second week, the shift was undeniable. Stratus was trending on Product Hunt. Startups were name-dropping us in pitch decks. Investors were suddenly asking if we were open to acquisition talks. We weren't. We were just getting started. Meanwhile, Apex Logic looked like a collapsing monument, something once proud, now hollowed by arrogance and decay. Their client churn rate quietly climbed past 17%. Internal tickets tripled. Their status page, once pristine, now flickered red twice a day. And in their War Room Slack channel, Jared had gone from golden boy to ghost. The same engineers who once dismissed me as too intense were now suggesting we roll back to the version of the engine I built before my exit. Problem was, they didn't have it, I did, and I'd rebuilt it into something they couldn't touch. At Stratus, we renamed it publicly, NovaCore V23 Architecture by Emily Dawson. It was a small line in a product update blog, but it echoed like a thunderclap. The next morning, a LinkedIn post from a data scientist at a competing firm went viral. Just ran tests on NovaCore V2.3. Holy hell. Whoever Emily Dawson is, she didn't just build an engine. She built a standard. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That post snowballed into a dozen more. Interviews, blog threads, whispers from ex-Apex clients now asking for meetings with Stratus. Then came the moment I didn't expect. A new connection request on LinkedIn. Dale Whitmore. No message. No explanation. Just the silent click of a man who realized too late that he'd thrown away the one person who held his empire together. I didn't accept. I didn't block him either. I just let it sit there unanswered, like the 15 years of work he'd ignored until it was gone. Let him stew in that silence. Because while he was playing politics, I was building something real. And now the whole world could see it. By the third week, the pressure inside Apex Logic turned lethal. Their system, once hailed as best in class, was now an unreliable Frankenstein, limping along on hotfixes and denial. Internal blame spiraled. Jared pushed another rushed deployment to fix a latency bug. It crashed the entire personalization module for 36 hours. Key clients revolted. One of their largest e-commerce partners terminated contract mid-quarter and migrated, publicly, to Stratus. They didn't even try to hide it. They posted on XC, switched to Stratus Analytics. Real-time smooth UX conversion up 29%. Whoever built this engine, we owe you coffee. Or stock. They tagged me. The name Emily Dawson started trending, not because I posted anything, but because people kept saying my name out loud. In boardrooms, in emails, on stages. At Apex, it was mutiny in slow motion. An insider forwarded me a recording from a tense Friday exec call. Dale trying to hold it together. Jared bumbling through excuses. The CEO asking cold. So let me get this straight. You replaced the architect of our most profitable product with a guy who once asked what an API gateway does. No one spoke for 12 full seconds. Then came the final blow. Stratus's official press release. Emily Dawson appointed Chief Technology Officer. No drama. No firework graphics. Just my name, my title, and a breakdown of NovaCore's performance. 33% faster response, 24% higher conversion, 99.99% uptime. And at the bottom, a quote from Lucas: "We didn't just hire a CTO, we hired the future." I read it alone in my new office. Sunlight hitting the glass. My fingers curled around a cup of coffee. I didn't have to microwave 3 times between meetings. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just breathed. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for someone to take credit for what I built. It was mine. And the company that called me, too emotional for leadership, they were about to choke on the very engine they claimed wasn't good enough. Because I didn't burn that place to the ground. I built something higher. And the smoke, it was just them collapsing under their own lies. The collapse wasn't a headline. It was a slow public unspooling. By Thursday, Apex Logic's investor relations inbox was flooded. Someone leaked a screenshot from a client dashboard showing a 5-second load time on personalized recommendations. 5 seconds in e-commerce was a death sentence. Friday morning, the board issued an emergency statement. Unexpected performance degradation related to legacy system infrastructure. Immediate internal review underway. Legacy system. They still wouldn't say my name. But they didn't need to. Everyone in the industry already knew what had happened. They had taken the heart of their product, my engine, ripped it apart without understanding it, handed it to a frat boy with a hoodie and a slogan, and now they were paying the price in churn and shame. And still, they tried to spin the narrative. Dale gave a limp interview to a minor tech blog, saying, "We're focusing on forward-looking innovation, not dwelling on past personnel changes." But innovation wasn't what was bleeding them dry. It was the absence of understanding. Because without me, there was no forward, only stall, only crash. Meanwhile, Novacore was quietly rewriting industry benchmarks. At Stratus, we weren't celebrating. We were expanding. I hired a team of engineers, many of them women who'd been passed over just like I had. We worked in sync, rebuilding every module I'd once had to justify, defend, or hide. Now, we published them openly. We signed 3 enterprise clients in 7 days. Each one left Apex without hesitation. The final nail came during Q3 earnings. Apex Logic announced a 26% revenue decline, citing technical transition difficulties and infrastructure uncertainty. One analyst, half laughing, asked on the live call, "Wasn't this system originally built by someone you let go 6 months ago?" Silence. And then, the twist. Because the next day, TechCrunch ran a feature. The woman who built, lost, and reclaimed the future of AI-driven commerce, Emily Dawson's quiet revolution. They got it right. Every line. They told the story of a woman who spent 15 years building the bones of an empire, got erased, then returned, not to fight, not to gloat, but to build something better. My inbox exploded. Investors, conference requests, former colleagues writing to say they were sorry, that they saw what was happening but didn't speak, that they wanted to work with me now. Even my old manager, Jenna, the one who once said, "We just don't see you as leadership material." She wrote "You proved me wrong. I'm glad." But I didn't reply, because I wasn't interested in their apologies. I wasn't here to be liked. I was here to lead, and I was just getting started. That night, I didn't celebrate. I sat alone in my apartment, lights low, the hum of the city outside my window, and let the silence wash over me. Not the suffocating kind like the day they let me go. This was different. This was a silence filled with clarity. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't surviving. I was choosing. And yet the ghosts were still there. 15 years at Apex didn't just vanish. I still remembered the hallway where I used to pace before presentations. Heart pounding, rehearsing every line so no one would call me too assertive. I remembered the tight smiles in meetings when I suggested new ideas, only to have them repeated later by someone louder and male. I remembered the nights I stayed up fixing systems no one understood, the weekends I spent debugging instead of living, and I remembered how invisible I felt, how small they made me feel, how hard I worked to be easy to work with, when really what they meant was easy to ignore. That messes with you. It rewires your brain. You start asking permission for brilliance. You shrink your ideas so they can be digested by men with less experience but louder voices. You apologize before explaining things you built. You spend years polishing your edges to fit a mold that was never built for you. And then one day, they toss you out and act like you should thank them. That kind of betrayal cuts deep. But what no one tells you is, sometimes, that kind of pain cracks something open. It did for me. Underneath the grief, the fury, the disbelief, there was something else. A clarity. A quiet, steel-hard realization that I never needed their validation. That the code always spoke for me. That every sprint, every commit, every late night build wasn't about approval. It was about creation. I'm not a martyr. I'm not a symbol. I'm a builder. And they mistook that for something they could own. But here's the thing they never understood, E. You can fire someone from your company, but you can't fire her from her purpose. And when she takes that purpose and builds something cleaner, smarter, faster, you don't get to be surprised when the world follows her instead. That realization didn't hit me all at once. It unfolded slowly, like code compiling line by line, clean, deliberate, undeniable. The more success Stratus gained, the more people tried to rewrite the past. I started hearing whispers. People at Apex claiming they saw potential in me all along, that they always knew I had leadership in me, as if they hadn't once nodded in silence while I was sidelined, dismissed, and ultimately erased. It made me sick, but I didn't confront them. That would have meant giving them power over my present. Instead, I kept building. Each day I stepped into Stratus, something in me healed. The engineers who now looked to me didn't treat me like I was difficult. They treated me like I was necessary. They asked questions, they listened, and I realized it wasn't that I'd been too much at Apex. I'd just been in the wrong place, the wrong system. A system that was never designed to let someone like me lead. Because the truth is, I had been conditioned to feel grateful just to be in the room, to believe that recognition was a luxury, that visibility had to be earned by working twice as hard and staying twice as quiet. But here's what no one prepares you for. What it feels like to finally breathe without shrinking. What it feels like to walk into a room and own your place in it. Not because you were handed a seat, but because you built the damn table. Some nights, I'd catch myself staring at my screen, watching data flow through NovaCore like electricity through a live wire. And I'd think, this isn't revenge, this is reclamation of my time, of my voice, of my name. Because Apex didn't just fire an employee. They tried to erase a creator. And now, every graph that spiked upward, every client that signed with Stratus, every product launch powered by my architecture, it all reminded them that you can't erase someone who rebuilt themselves. Stronger, louder, sharper. And this time, she had the receipts. By the end of the quarter, something unexpected happened. It wasn't just that Stratus had overtaken Apex in market share. It was that the industry had started to rewrite me into its DNA. Tech panels invited me not just to speak, but to lead discussions. Young engineers, especially women, started quoting my deployment strategies in blog posts. I even saw a Reddit thread titled, "How Emily Dawson Quietly Rewired Corporate Tech Culture, One Commit at a Time." And yet, I still felt the weight of what came before. Because being celebrated after being discarded doesn't erase the years I spent proving I deserved a seat I'd already built. It doesn't undo the gut, twisting silence after speaking up in meetings and being met with smirks. It doesn't undo being told I was hard to work with, for defending a system I knew better than anyone else in the room. That kind of wound doesn't close overnight. But I had stopped waiting for closure. I didn't need Apex's apology. Their downfall was public and self-inflicted, and I had nothing to do with it. That was the hardest part for them to accept. They wanted to believe I'd sabotaged them. But the truth was more painful. I'd simply done better without them. I'd stopped shrinking, stopped softening my voice to sound less threatening, stopped explaining things to people who had no intention of understanding, And in doing that, I found something no promotion, no bonus, no Employee of the Month certificate could have given me. I found autonomy, not just in code, but in identity. I was no longer the woman trying to fit into a system built to exclude her. I was the one designing the new architecture, technically, culturally, structurally. And that terrified the people who used to control the room. But it inspired the ones who'd been waiting for someone like them to finally take the lead. Because when you stop apologizing for your brilliance, when you stop letting them rename your power as attitude, when you finally own the work, the voice, the fire that's always been yours, you don't just win, you change the rules entirely. And that's a story no system can overwrite. That realization, the one about changing the rules, didn't come with applause. It came in a quiet moment, weeks later, during a product review at Stratus. One of our junior engineers, Samira, was walking the team through a new integration layer she designed. It was clean, thoughtful, efficient. But when she finished, I saw that familiar hesitation in her eyes, the kind I used to carry in every meeting. That moment right before someone asks, "Is this okay?" So I said it before she could. "It's not just okay, Samira. It's better than what I would have done." And I meant it. She smiled. Not wide, not dramatic, just a quiet curve of her mouth. The kind that said, "Thank you for seeing me." That's when it hit me, this is what legacy looks like. Not your name on a building. Not a viral headline. Legacy is the space you create for others to rise unafraid. It's the systems you build that don't require someone to shrink to fit in. It's the people you empower who go on to build even better. I thought my story was about being underestimated. Then I thought it was about revenge. But it was never really about them at all. It was about what happens when someone finally stops asking for permission to lead. What happens when you trust your own voice more than the ones trying to silence it? What happens when you walk away from what you were supposed to be and step fully into what you are? And maybe that's what scared Apex most. Not that I left. Not that I outperformed them. But that I proved they were never necessary to begin with. Because I didn't just rebuild the code they stole. I rebuilt me. And this version, she doesn't crash. She scales, line by line, powerful. Unapologetic. Months passed. Apex logic was still reeling. The headlines had died down, but the damage was permanent. Clients were gone, investors were nervous. And inside those sterile glass walls where I once sat biting my tongue, all that remained was the echo of what they lost. What they threw away. And I didn't watch their fall with glee. That's not who I am. But I didn't grieve for them either. I was too busy building. At Stratus, we weren't just iterating. We were rewriting the whole way teams operated. I made sure of it. Our culture wasn't about fit. It was about function. We didn't talk about synergy or hustle or grind. We talked about clarity, collaboration, and respect. I saw what happened when people, especially women, especially outsiders, were treated as risks instead of assets. So I made damn sure no one on my team would ever have to justify their place at the table. They'd already earned it. Every engineer was empowered to challenge ideas, not each other. Junior staff could question me in open meetings, and sometimes they were right. And when they were, I celebrated it. That's the difference between leadership and ego. Leadership doesn't flinch when someone else shines. And that shift, that was the real revolution. Not just better tech, better teams, better systems, ones that didn't eat their best builders alive. The irony is, after all the noise, after the interviews, the shares, the subtle nods from people who once ignored me, I finally felt quiet inside, steady, centered. There was no victory dance. Just a woman who had been buried under broken promises, now standing taller than ever. Because in the end, this wasn't a comeback story. It was a continuation. A woman who never stopped building, even when they told her to stop, even when they made her invisible, even when they stole what she created and tried to call it theirs. I didn't just survive. I thrived. And now my name is on every system they said I wasn't ready to lead. Turns out I wasn't too much, they were just too small. The funny thing is, I still get messages from former colleagues, from strangers, from engineers in countries I've never visited, who say, I read your story. It made me stay. It made me speak up. It made me start. They don't ask for advice. They ask for space to do what I had to fight for, create, lead, exist without having to justify every breath. And I give it to them, gladly. Because here's what I learned: power isn't about control. It's about creation. It's about deciding how you show up when no one's watching, who you build for when no one's cheering, what you keep building after you've already won. And yeah, I won. Not just a title or a better office or a pay bump I stopped checking. I won something far more rare. Peace. The kind that comes from knowing you didn't cut corners. You didn't play small. You didn't become someone else to get ahead. You stayed you, and that was enough. More than enough. And now, when I walk into a room, I don't brace myself. I don't wait to be interrupted. I don't shrink. I walk in as Emily Dawson, Chief Technology Officer, builder of systems, teams, futures. And if they don't see me, that's fine. I don't need their permission to be undeniable. Because somewhere out there, a woman is quietly being told she's too much, too bold, too stubborn, too smart. And I hope when she hears that, she thinks of me and keeps going. Because if there's one thing I want you to remember from this story, it's this: they can underestimate you, they can overlook you, they can even fire you, but they cannot stop you if you refuse to stop yourself. I used to think my story needed validation. That someone in power, some board member, some senior exec, had to acknowledge the damage they caused for it to mean something. But now I know better. Closure doesn't come from the people who hurt you. It comes from the person you become despite them. And I became someone I'm proud of. Not because I climbed the ladder, but because I rebuilt it entirely. Stronger, wider, with room for more than just me. At Stratus, we launched Nova Core 3.0 last quarter. The new engine isn't just outperforming industry standards, it's setting them. And this time, it carries something my old work never did. My name, signed in every build, every architecture diagram, every internal doc, not out of ego, but ownership. The kind that was denied to me for too long. I still think about the girl I was at Apex. Sitting in those glass-walled meetings, hands folded, voice steady, trying so hard to be taken seriously without being called difficult. She would be shocked by who I am now, and she'd be proud, too. Because this version of me doesn't ask for permission. She gives it to others, to speak, to lead, to take up space. And maybe that's the greatest revenge of all. Not watching them crumble, but rising so high they have to squint to see you. Because legacy isn't what you leave behind in a company. It's what you ignite in the people who come next. So here's what I'll leave you with. If you're building something, anything, don't stop because they don't believe in it yet. They don't have to, you do. Build it anyway. Build it loud. Build it beautifully. And when they ask you later how you did it, look them in the eye and say, I never stopped. I never waited. And I never asked for permission. For me, it's not about headlines or accolades. Those fade. Algorithms shift. What stays, what always stays, is impact. The team I lead now doesn't work in fear. They work in flow. We challenge each other not to prove worth, but to push boundaries. Our reviews are fierce but fair. Our failures, documented, studied, learned from, never buried. No more whisper networks. No more hallway politics. And when someone on my team shines, we don't sideline them, we spotlight them. Because when you build systems that reward truth, not ego, you don't just get better work. You get better people. People who stay. People who grow. People who turn around and pull others up the mountain with them. That's the culture I was denied for 15 years. And it's the culture I now protect like oxygen. As for Apex Logic, they went quiet. I heard they rebranded. New logo, new leadership, new vision. But a new name won't clean old rot. Not when the foundation still fears strong voices. Still confuses control with leadership. still buries talent under the weight of fragile egos. They'll rebuild, maybe, but they won't catch up. Not because they don't have smart people, but because they never learned to listen to them. That's their curse. Mine. I get to keep building. And this time I build without compromise. The best part. I'm not building alone anymore. The room I used to dream about, the one filled with brilliant women, curious minds, loud ideas, and no need to shrink, is real now. It's ours. We mentor openly. We document generously. We leave the ladder down. And no one has to beg to be taken seriously. I can't count the number of young engineers, women, non-binary folks, first-gen kids, who've messaged me just to say, thank you for proving it's possible. Not perfect, not easy, but possible. Some of them still work in places like Apex, still silenced in meetings, still watching their code get shipped without credit. And when they ask, how did you know it was time to walk away? My answer is always this. The second you have to become less to stay, it's time to go. Because no paycheck is worth your peace. No promotion is worth your personhood. And no title matters if it's nailed to a door they won't even let you open. You can't fix a system that depends on your silence to survive, but you can build something outside of it. Something real, something sharp, something that reflects you, not who they told you to be. And maybe, if we do it loud enough, long enough, well enough, they'll have no choice but to change, or be left behind. If you've made it to the end, thank you. You didn't just hear a story. You witnessed what happens when quiet brilliance refuses to be erased. This wasn't just about Emily Dawson. This was about you. About every person who's been overlooked, underestimated, or talked over in a meeting they built the slides for. About every woman told to calm down when she pointed out the flaws. About every mind labeled too much, when in fact they were just too far ahead. Here's the truth. You don't need their permission to be powerful. You don't need a seat at their table to make change. Sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is stop knocking and start building your own. Even when they take credit. Even when they shut doors. Even when they pretend you were never there. You still exist. You still matter. And you're still capable of building something they can't even imagine. So don't stop. Don't shrink. Don't silence yourself just to stay safe in a system that was never designed for your success. You are not too emotional. You are not too ambitious. You are not too much. You're enough. More than enough. You are what they hoped no one would notice, and exactly what the world needs more of. So if this story lit something inside you, share it. Send it to someone who needs it. Comment, like, subscribe, not because we're chasing numbers, but because someone out there needs to be reminded that they're not alone. And maybe today, that someone is you. Telling story with me